What is up, Tectonians? Today I got 5 tips to help improve your Ableton workflow. Let's jump in. So before I jump into the tricks, kind of just like what is workflow? And workflow is essentially how fast can you get an idea from your head into the DAW. And so these 5 tips are going to help just speed up your process and hopefully help you finish more songs, and then also help the quality of your songs as well. So step 1 is to have a default template set so that when Ableton loads every time, your DAW is set up and ready for you to write with as little obstructions as possible. So what I'll do is I'll go through my default set, and this can look different for everyone. Once you have your, basically what you do is you just build a set, and then you go over here to File, and then you just save as default set, and it'll load every time. So as you can see, I have my sidechain group. It's routed to the sends, and I have the kick and snare here, so I can just copy and paste the MIDI when I draw the drums, and you can just see it's just a really short little blip. So the sidechain routing is already there. That saves a lot of time because you're going to sidechain every time. I have this whole group that I know every time is going to be sidechained. I already have my sidechain here. I have a multi-band sidechain set up to route to the snare if I need a little extra space, and then Soothe to do some spectral sidechaining as well. I have extra sidechain groups here if I need them. I have a filter maybe that's a little high, cutoff around 200. I have my synth bases set up as well. And then all this stuff is getting routed to a sidechain. My sub patch is already made. Oh, that's a lie. Well, that should be, here, I'll update it right now. There. Now it's my sub patch is made. I have my drums all set up with processing chains that I would normally use. This is like, sometimes I'll turn individual things on and off, but I already have the processing and an entire cymbal rack set up. And then I also have a vocal channel here. And this is going to be pretty close to what I want to use every time. So having this default, imagine having to set that up every single time. That saves like 20 minutes probably, maybe even a little bit more time. That's huge when in the grand scheme of things. This next one's a personal one that I do, and I haven't really seen anyone quite do their drums this way, but I have full drum racks loaded up ahead of time with samples. Whoops, I don't need this on. And what I do is I just throw an empty drum rack in and go to Splice and just drop a bunch of samples in. And that just lets me start writing right away. And then if I don't like the sound, I can just move it around. And I actually write out my drum parts like that. So I already have a snare rack full of snares. Some of the more common ones that I might use. I also have this build drum rack that's the same thing as this, but it just I use it for the builds and the drops because I like to process those different. I have a whole hi-hat rack with crash, open, and closed hi-hats. There's a lot of stuff in there that's really good. And then I have this auxiliary rack with like shakers, tambourines, just some basic aux percussion to kind of add some flavor to it. And these are loaded in the default set, so when I open Ableton up, I don't have to search for drum samples. Obviously, a lot of times by the end of the song, I'll go back and tweak the samples or have to find some new ones because they're not in the rack. But this lets you just out of the gate not think about sample finding in your drums, and it has saved me hours and hours and hours and hours and hours of time. I would totally recommend doing your drums like this. I do see a lot of people do this, but it doesn't hurt, and that is to save your effect chains ahead of time. So in one of my colors here, I have a bunch of my most common effect chains saved over here in this in my frequently used. So for example, if if I was going to use this two-way frequency splitter, which I use quite a bit, it's just a little thing that splits the frequency in half, and then you can put effects in either one. Real simple thing. Once you make it, click save, and then save it to your favorites. I use this full drum bus one all the time, because I pretty much process my drum bus pretty similarly. And just like it's just whole effect chain that is made already, and all I gotta do is go in and tweak the parameters. I think this is just a really, really, really helpful thing. I have this cymbal processor. Yeah, pretty much any, like, imagine having to do this kind of effect chain every single time. And I don't know what your effect chains are. Like, everyone has different ones that they like to use. But just put them in an easy to locate place and save them, because you might use them again. Like, yep, I got this kicks one here. Yeah, I think that saving your effect chains will save you a lot of time. All right, step 2 is a real easy one that I don't see a lot of do, and that's to bracket off your song form. So if you right click and add locator, you can make little brackets essentially, and they will show up here. And so when you're getting deep in the weeds and writing lots of parts, you can always keep track of where you are in the song, and I kind of use these as anchor points, having like risers go into them, that sort of thing. And this is like, if you don't know what you really want to write, or, you know, that sort of thing, this can just give you some form. You can obviously shift these around as you need to. But like, I already feel more confident that I could write something right now just because these locators are here. Yeah, so I think having locators in is like a must, honestly, in my opinion. I think when I see people not using those, it just doesn't help my brain at all. So this is a real easy way. Just hammer out your song form and put the locators in. It's something Ableton is really well built for. All right, so my last tip is to do some sound design outside of your normal workflow. And this could look like, for example, I have a couple of these just like mud pies of just cool sounds. Usually I use these neuros for fills. I'm not like a neuro person, but I will write them for fills. But having samples ahead of time like that to use for fills, A, they're more unique because you make them yourself, and B, it can save time looking for one because you already made it. So I'm going to show you a real quick example of how I might do something like this. What I'm going to do is, actually what I'll do is record in. I have this neuro sound loaded into Phase Plant here. I love Phase Plant. It's how I write all my fills. All right, and this isn't processed or anything. I would do some more processing outside of this, but for now, this will get the job done. So what I'm gonna do is set up another audio track and record the audio in. I'm just gonna route it right from Phase Plant. Hit the record button, and I'm just gonna record in some sounds. Those are kind of nice, actually. I'm gonna keep this. All right, so now down here you can see that there's the audio that is tracked from that, and what I'll do next is export this audio. And I'm gonna save this in my samples, and we go samples and synth bases, neurosine. and then save it. And now in the samples folder in Ableton, you now have this cool little bit of audio that you can use for whatever you want. You could do this for any sort of, sound design. But I think having some sound design in your folder that you've done yourself is a very, very valuable thing for your workflow as well. So that's 5 simple ways to improve your workflow. Let me know if you got any more down in the comments.